Ahsoka's season finale is here, and all I can say is that was everything. On a thematical level, to everything that I saw in the show, just as a whole, this was everything I wanted as a Star Wars Rebels fan, as a Star Wars Clone Wars fan, as a fan of Ahsoka, who is my favorite Star Wars character, so yes, there is some bias, but also, just in general, as a Star Wars fan. This was everything I could want and more. As someone who's grown up with Star Wars, from the animation to the live action to the books to the comics to the games, this was everything to me. And Ahsoka Season 1 is a flat-out masterpiece to me. Now, I know not everyone loved it. I know not everyone out there, people were screaming in the comments section. But freaking flat out, to me, this was a masterpiece. This gave me the Force. This made me feel like the Force was inside me. And I loved this. Now, of course, before we get any further into this review, this will be a full review for overall the season, but specifically the finale for Season 1. I know there's been kind of back and forth. Will there be a Season 2? Will this just tie into the movie that Dave Filoni's doing? We don't know yet. I would assume they're probably going to do a Season 2, and then that will probably tie into the movie. But we will all find out, I'm sure, later on in the future at probably a Star Wars convention. But with that said, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Please share your thoughts. Be polite to people down there. Let's be nice. And let's just start rambling off about this entire episode. So first off, the first big Easter egg that I want to mention is the Blade of Talzin. That was freaking awesome to see in live action. And seeing Morgan actually get that, it felt really nice. I think overall, the entire show really had a great thematical level and parallels to each and every one of our characters. Now, the only two things I really do want to address as a negative for this episode, now I know it's TV. If this was a movie, I'd probably have like a bigger issue to it. But TV-wise, I know we're going to get another season. I'm just a little bit selfish and I wanted a little bit more. Shin and Baylan, I was a little bit disappointed, were not played out more into the finale. They had one scene, that's it, and just alluded to where they were going next in their story, whether it is a spinoff of them or in general for Season 2 where their journey goes off on. But I have to be honest, and a lot of it sucks because Ray Stevenson has sadly passed, and they will most likely have to recast Baylan. And I don't know exactly what they do there. It just sucks because I really wanted another powerful performance from Ray Stevenson just one last time. And it turns out last week's episode was very much the last performance we got of his ever. We got one last glimpse of him, and he's awesome. He's badass. It just makes me very emotional to see that. So I wish we had a little bit more Baylan and Shin towards the back half. But I understand this is TV. Not every storyline is going to be solved. That's one thing that we do have to look at. If you look at every single one of the Star Wars shows, Andor, Boba Fett, Mando, I mean, all of them have little threads that have still not been crossed off. But so that's just my one little nitpick to this all, because I just really love what they did with Ray Stevenson's character in here. And I'm very interested to see how they continue Baylan's story in the future. With that said, the rest of this episode, my God, was everything I could want. The strategicness, Lars Mikkelsen's voice and his powerful performance as Thrawn, to Rosario Dawson's incredible performance as Ahsoka, to, of course, Sabine and Ezra, which, man, it's great to see Ezra building his lightsaber with Huyang, getting that whole conversation with Kanan Jarrus, and in general, how Huyang now ties that into, like, I know who Kanan is, I know who Caleb was, and that he kept the hilt, which is just, again, that full circle moment of Ezra attaching that to his hilt, and again, becoming his master of his sorts. Which we all know that he's going to be training Jason when Jason wants to become a Jedi. And I love that because a lot of this episode was those. It was those solemn moments that it wasn't just full-on action, which the action was incredible. And again, shout out to Kevin Kiner, who is just magnificent. If I was Lucasfilm, that guy would be doing every Star Wars score going forward for movies, and specifically like stuff like this. And I genuinely mean that. Like, he's just proved himself with all the animated stuff, but this series is top tier, one of the best scores that I've ever heard in Star Wars of all time. I would actually put it up there with, like, top 3 scores for anything Star Wars. And that's saying a lot because John Williams has done a lot too, and Ludwig was incredible for Mandalorian and Boba Fett, but this is just on a whole other level, and it's easily his best composed score yet. But it's all the little moments. And, you know, if we want to go beat by which character, everything with Thrawn and Morgan and the Dathomir mothers, all this stuff was just insanely wicked and creepy and stuff that I never thought we would ever see in live action. And again, just Lars Mikkelsen's performance, like, you just see that quiver in his lip, his frustration, his excitement. It's so concealed and so condensed, and seeing that he won, which I think we all expected him to win, just takes it to that next level of wondering what he's going to do next and where he's going to take that next. And seeing him sacrifice his stormtroopers were insane, or his dark troopers per se, but they did really go with the undead nature of them when the grandmothers raised them back from the dead. And before we even get to that, you know, they try to bomb Ahsoka. They take down her ship. They take the Howlers in. They're rushing through that, which that entire sequence of the lasers blasting down on them and them trying to separate the doors. I still have damn goosebumps from this episode from multiple points, but that was just like one of the first ones. Then they get in there and the dark troopers come down and they start wickedly, all the lightsabers light up at once and they're just going ham, and I'm freaking the fuck out, and I'm so excited at this. And then the grandmothers do their spell and it weaves through them and they become the undead, and it's like Night of the Living Dead total tones with Romero, and they just have to take him out once again, but they just keep being resurrected. It just becomes them having to defend themselves, and Thrawn notices, I have to sacrifice another person. He sacrifices Morgan to go down there and stop them. She has that blade of Talzin, which is so freaking cool to see. If you don't know what that is, you should look it up. It has a lot of awesome lore to it. And seeing Ahsoka and her have to pretty much reduel. We haven't seen them. It's a, you know, rebattle because of everything that they've went through within Mando. It was badass to say the least. I loved this entire sequence, this entire battle. And then her telling Ezra and Sabine to go. And then you see them going. Then they fought those like big death troopers that were dark troopers, but they were giant and they were just monstrous. And seeing Sabine use the Force for the first time to grab the lightsaber and stab the dude in and then help out Ezra, it's fantastic. And again, their chemistry with one another just works wonders. I love Ezra in here. I loved him in Rebels, but he is just phenomenal. And the performance in here is fantastic. Sabine the same way. And they're going and they have to do the jump because the ship's leaving, so she force jumps Ezra. You think she's going to force jump, but then she sees her master who could potentially die. And how many times have we seen that within like Clone Wars, Rebels, where a master is defending herself and they end up usually leaving them, but this time she stayed and we thought she left, but she didn't. Ezra got on the ship, took out the two dark troopers and ended up putting on their stuff, which I knew he was going to do. And Ahsoka and Sabine have to finish out the rest of this. Finishes out the dark troopers. Ahsoka annihilates Morgan, slashes her right through. Satisfying. Thrawn knows they're coming, starts shooting down at them. They jump in the ship. They're going. They're attached to that thing. They're flying up, trying to catch up. And that final conversation with Thrawn, where it's just him gloating. I won. I won. Long live the Empire. And all the little nuances he says that I knew your master. I know your strategies. You're just a Ronin. God, man, it was so good. And her frustration and knowing that she's going to lose, but she has to at least be open and welcome because she got that final lesson from her master of what's going on right there. Where while they might have lost Thrawn, Ezra got home, which in the end of the day was Sabine's mission. And they blow off, and we finish out and we see the Balin and Shin. Shin's going with the mercenaries or the Ravagers or whatever the hell they are. Very interested to see where that goes. Balin standing on some cliff with this nice statue behind him, looking out in the distance. Again, interesting. I really need to know where that goes because I'm very curious. Ahsoka and Sabine come back with Hu Yang to the little snail people, the Noki, the Nali. And, you know, they have that nice conversation and brilliant score. Very hopeful at the same time, even though we kind of got an Empire that Strikes Back ending. And it ends with her master, Anakin, looking at her proud, always having her back. And that made me emotional, honestly. That made me very emotional, see how that tied in. And then when you take that and you equate it to what we've seen in here, it's beautiful. And then Sabine saying she sees something in the distance, but it's just shadows. But it was actually Anakin, the Force Ghost. And in my eyes, I think Ahsoka saw him and saw how proud of her he was. Which leads me that we know that they'll be saved. Somehow, shape, and form. They will find their way, whether it's through the world between worlds being more explored or something of that nature. They're all connected. She knows Ezra got home. And that moment when Ezra lands, walks up, Chopper's knows it's Chopper. Chopper knows it's Ezra, and Ezra says hello to Hera. Tears! Emotion! And I know for people out there who have not watched Star Wars Rebels, this probably meant nothing to you. To me, it meant the world. Because for people who don't know, Hera, her, I guess, husband, but her lover, was Kanan. And that's where we get that from. This show just was everything I wanted. I was so nervous going into it because I love Dave Filoni, but I didn't know how he was going to adapt it. I was so worried the show was just going to be cameo. And while, yes, there was cameos, they always had substance to them. This world, the thematics, the lore, the world building, the things that we got to see in live action were all exciting and all thrilling, and it really did feel like an 8-episode miniseries that explored and dove deeper into Star Wars lore, showed things to people who have never watched the animated stuff or read the comics or books and just watched the movies, showed the witchcraft, the magic of all that, the world and how big Star Wars truly can be. And I think this goes as far to show that Star Wars does not just need to be Tatooine or the same characters that we've seen before. It can be new characters like this. And I fucking loved Ahsoka. This point blank is one of my favorite things Star Wars and Lucasfilm have ever done. This is something that I think George Lucas would look at and be absolutely proud of. And if you don't think so, you're fucking crazy. I genuinely think you are. Because if you were to ask me to rank like all the movies, all the shows, everything, this would be top, like just off the top of my head, this would be like top 3, 4 things that Star Wars has ever done. I genuinely love this series that much. And I'm so happy to be saying that. So definitely let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button for more thoughts like this. Again, this might be the final Star Wars series of the year, but when the Acolyte comes out next year, we'll be definitely covering it. Bad Batch Season 3, and of course, more Marvel content. But I don't just do that. I talk all sorts of movies and TV over here on a daily basis. Blockbusters, indies, that is my cup of tea. Thank you so much for tuning in week to week to talk Ahsoka. I skipped a lot of screeners for you guys to watch this right away. But of course, guys, until next time, may the Force be with us all.